Rendlesham Forest Incident of late December 1980 has been dubbed Britain's Roswell because of strange events that occurred near two air bases in Suffolk, England. The political climate in 1980 was still very much a Cold War stalemate between the USA and the USSR, a continuation of the previous decades under various administrations. In 1979, US President Jimmy Carter and Soviet leader Leonid Brezhnev signed the SALT II agreement, outlining limitations and guidelines for nuclear weapons. SALT meaning the Strategic Arms Limitations Treaty. Jimmy Carter had proclaimed a grain embargo against the USSR, also boycotting the 1980 Summer Olympics.
I have notified the Olympic Committee that with Soviet invading forces in Afghanistan, neither the American people nor I will support sending an Olympic team to Moscow.
Because of the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. December the 12th, NATO double-track decision. NATO offers mutual limitation of ballistic missiles combined with the threat that in case of disagreement, NATO would deploy more middle-range nuclear weapons in Western Europe. Eventually, President Jimmy Carter would withdraw the SALT II treaty from Senate confirmation and ban technology sales to the Soviet Union. It was this political backdrop which was behind the events that happened in Rendlesham in 1980. RAF Bentwaters was used by the United States Army Air Force since World War II and was home to the 81st Fighter Wing between 1951 and 1993, using A-10 Thunderbolts, known as the Warthog. It is around the location of Bentwaters and its neighbouring base RAF Woodbridge that the events of the 26th and the 28th of December transpired. We're going to hear the experiences of some of the key witnesses involved. On the 26th of December 1980, lights had been spotted above nuclear weapons storage bunkers at RAF Woodbridge. They appeared to shoot lasers down to the bunkers and were witnessed by various airbase personnel. At this time, Officer John Burrows was on duty at the East Gate. He observes a red light go down into the woods at the east end of the runway into the tree line. There is no sound, no explosion, no ground concussion or fire. Nothing. Burrows calls the sighting into Central Security Control at RAF Bentwaters and is soon joined by Staff Sergeant Jim Peniston, shift supervisor at the time. They drive into the woods to investigate. When the vehicle can go no further, they continue on foot. They went into the forest and arrived at an area where the air was filled with intense static energy. Eventually they came across a glowing triangular or pyramidal shaped craft, which appeared to have hieroglyphs on the side with coloured lights. When they tried to approach the craft, it moved off through the trees. This made the animals on a nearby farm panic and react noisily in fear. The craft was spotted again 1 hour later near the back gate of the base before disappearing again. At around 4 AM local police were called to the scene, but they stated that the only lights they could see were from the lighthouse at Orford Ness. At daybreak, some military personnel returned to the clearing and found 3 small marks in the ground in a triangular pattern, broken branches and burn marks on the trees. Sergeant Nevels took radiation readings in the clearing where the markings were located and recording that they were much higher than normal. Later it transpired that Jim Penniston had drawn his service revolver, a .38 Special. Law enforcement were allowed to carry sidearms, but other US personnel could not take weapons off the base due to a treaty with the UK. He levelled his revolver at the craft when he realised it was not an aircraft and approached it slowly.
The craft was a triangular craft. It was black in color, very shiny. It was metal, but it was smooth as glass. Inside the fabric of this triangular craft, there was light movement of red and blue running through the fabric of it. I had pasted off, and it measured 9 feet by 9 feet by 9 feet.
Jim Penniston touched the craft, which he said was smooth like black glass, until he touched the glyphs, which he described as touching sandpaper. Upon touching the glyphs, he said he saw or felt a flash of light, and then started seeing digital codes in his mind's eyes, a series of ones and zeros. Upon returning to the base, he kept seeing the binary codes in his head, so he started to write down the codes. He never looked at them again until 30 years later. It has been referred to as an information download from the craft to Penniston. A binary code specialist analysed the notes Penniston had made, and it was translated into the phrases: exploration of humanity, continuous for planetary advance, eyes of our eyes, and origin year 8100. Also a series of longitudinal and latitudinal coordinates that coincided with some of the most important and sacred places on the earth. Locations such as the pyramids in Egypt, the Nazca Lines, the Temple of Apollo, and more. Sites of power and worship all across the world. One of the coordinates was to a non-existent island called High Brazil, which in some medieval maps shows up in the Atlantic Ocean about 100 miles off the coast of Ireland, known in Celtic legend as the Irish Atlantis. Penniston stated that he has never believed that it was extraterrestrial. He says it is an interdimensional craft that was piloted by humans from the future. A physicist, Professor Ronald Mallet from the University of Connecticut, has been conducting research into time travel and the possibility of transmitting binary code over time.
I showed that a string of subatomic particles or neutrons could be arranged so that some point up, while others point down, representing zeros and ones. These zeros and ones can then encode a binary message, which could be sent into the past or the future.
Larry Warren was posted at an outpost at RAF Bentwaters on the night of the 28th of December, called Perimeter Post 18. He was there for around 90 minutes and then noticed frightened deer jump over the fence and run across the runway. Warren then started to hear chatter over the open frequencies of his radio about lights in the forest near RAF Woodbridge. "The lights are back again" was heard by Warren as he listened to the radio talk. Warren then gets a call from his supervising officer telling him he was going to be picked up by a truck. Shortly afterwards, the vehicle arrived with other service personnel in the back. Warren was told to get in, and they proceeded out of the base down a trail into the forest. The truck pulled up alongside some other vehicles, and the personnel got out and headed deeper into the forest. They came to a field where there were more airmen, security and police, some of whom had cameras, and they appeared to be waiting for something. There was a mist on the ground that seemed to resemble a platform.
This object, a red basketball-shaped object, came in from the North Sea area over the trees. I thought it was a taillight on an aircraft. Did a downward arc over Capel Green, came to a point over this mist. This basketball-sized amber light. It didn't seem solid. I couldn't tell you what it was. There was an explosion. This is described. It's very hard for me to describe it. This thing broke up into multiple shards of extremely bright light.
After the explosion of light, which gave off no sound, Warren could see a solid structure, a pyramid-type object approximately 30 feet at the base. This object had no windows and seemed distorted as he looked at it. He witnessed a bluish gold light split from the right-hand side of the object. The light was 4 feet high and a foot off the ground.
It was about a foot off the ground. It split, and it was only about 4 feet in height from the ground up, but it split away, and 3 individual kind of oblong cocoons of light with this thing in it. These 3 individual things inside it, people or things.
But they look like humans.
They were humanoid.
Okay.
Yeah, they were humanoid. There was.
You know the height of them?
Yeah, they would have been about, in height, probably about 4 feet. Really, I mean, you think of children.
They have
The light diminished, and that's where you could see what was in it. And I'm thinking, I don't know what I thought really. No, it was hairless, but there was clothing. There was an apparatus attached. I can't describe, a dark thing, and I could not see the lower extremities.
Warren said that as the personnel were called back using ranking, that he could see other lights in the trees and above the trees, similar to the one that had landed, as if they were covering it or backing it up. Warren also stated that Charles Holt was in the forest chasing other light phenomena. Lieutenant Colonel Charles Holt was the deputy base commander, and on the night of the 28th was at a party off the base. He received a message saying, "They are back." He returned to the base to get into uniform. Colonel Holt went into the forest to investigate. The tape recording he made and the report he filed of that night have become infamous in modern UFO history. Lieutenant Colonel Charles Holt, Lieutenant Bruce England, Master Sergeant Ball and Sergeant Neville met up with Staff Sergeant Adrian Bustinza and then proceeded to the location where Peniston and Burroughs had seen the object on the 26th of December. They were shown the 3 indentations in the clearing of the forest. They started to measure the indentations, and Neville took out his Geiger counter and started to get anomalous readings. The radiation was higher than background radiation levels. When the counter was put in the indentations, it was even higher, and even higher still when measured in the centre of the triangular pattern.
Let's go to the center of the area next and see what kind of reading we get out there. You're reading the clicks. I can't hear the clicks. Let's go. Got them at the center, Bruce? Okay, let's go to the center. Yes, that's the best deflection of the needle I've seen yet. Okay, can you give me an estimation? We're on the 0.5 scale. We're getting... I haven't seen it go any higher. Let's go farther. Okay, we'll go out toward the... Now it's picking up. This is out toward the number 1 indentation where we first got the strongest reading. Yeah, it's similar to what we got in the center. Here's 2. Up to what, 7? What? Just jumped up to 7/10 there. 7/10 right there in the center? Uh-huh. We found a small blast, what looks like a blasted or scruffed up area here.
As Holt and his men were examining the site, they started to hear the animals on a nearby farm making noises in fear, reacting to something.
0148, we're hearing very strange sounds out of the farmers' barnyard animals. They're just very, very active, making an awful lot of noise. Yes, been a pigmentation. You just saw a light where? Wait, slow down. Where? Right in this position here, straight ahead, in between the tree. There it is again. Watch, straight ahead off my flash right there, sir. There it is. Hey, I see it too. What is it? We don't know, sir. So can I get some of it? Yeah, it's a strange, small red light. Looks to be maybe a quarter to half mile, maybe further out.
They move cautiously forward, watching the object very closely.
There is no doubt about it. There's some type of strange flashing red light ahead. It's yellow. I saw a yellow tinge in it too. Weird. It appears to be maybe moving a little bit this way. It's brighter than it has been. Yellow. It's coming this way. It is definitely coming this way. Pieces of it are shooting off. There is no doubt about it. This is weird.
As they get closer, they start to see more definition in the object, which only made it appear more unusual.
Okay, we're looking at the thing. We're probably about 200 to 300 yards away. It looks like an eye winking at you. It's still moving from side to side. And when you put the star scope on it, it sort of has a hollow stare, a dark stare. It's like the pupil of an eye looking at you and winking. And the flash is so bright through the star scope that it almost burns your eye.
My name is Charles I. Halt. I'm a retired Air Force colonel. The third night I was called out to investigate, and there were objects in the sky. There was a glowing object in the forest. It moved about between the trees. It moved out into the farmer's field beyond the forest. It glowed. It appeared to be dripping something like molten metal. It silently exploded into 5 white objects and disappeared.
Multiple witnesses over different nights, with different experiences. Over the years, their separate accounts would be told and retold many times. The Halt tape has been heard by a multitude of ufologists. The binary code of Penniston was analysed, but did it contain a message for humanity? The sketches drawn of the craft and the description of it have been seen many, many times. The event was hardly headline news at the time, but it came to light soon enough. Alleged photos of the landing site surfaced, only to be later debunked. The division between the witnesses have all added to the mystique, and it's fueled the speculation about what really happened. There have been many theories over the years. The experienced airmen were seeing the beam of Orford Ness Lighthouse and misidentified it, despite the fact they had been seeing it for years. British Special Forces Regiment, the SAS, were playing a prank on US Air Force personnel, testing their security response at the height of the Cold War. Even to the possibility that the US servicemen on the nights of the 26th and the 28th of December 1980 actually witnessed an alien craft and its occupants. Maybe the truth will never be known, but I guess the intrigue is not in finding the answers, but in asking the questions.